Tonight, we're going to hone in on the first ever strike for Portland public school teachers. After weeks on the picket line, they returned to classrooms on Monday. But in the aftermath of what's been coined No School November, how does the union's day one demands compare to what they actually got? And are changes on the way when it comes to how public schools are funded in Oregon? Many say it's long overdue. That's our big story tonight. Portland teachers got some of the things they asked for, more money and planning time, but they had to concede on some of their big asks. The teachers union was asking for a cumulative 22% raise in the cost of living adjustments over the next 3 years. Before the strike, the district offered them 11%. In the end, they'll get 14% in raises over the next 3 years, and about half of teachers will get an additional 10% step increase. But when it comes to class sizes, teachers ended up giving in. They'd been asking for hard caps on class size, different numbers for each grade level. But in the end, they dropped that demand and instead agreed to continue to have teachers get paid extra for teaching bigger classes. The district had said that most classes in PPS elementary schools have fewer than 25 kids, but they also said that if they agreed to a class size cap, they'd have to hire hundreds more teachers. On planning time, the teachers got a little more, but not as much as they asked for. At the beginning of the strike, they were asking for 440 minutes per week for all teachers at all grade levels. That's around an hour and a half a day. They got 410 minutes each week, around an hour and 22 minutes a day, and additional planning days and grading days throughout the school year. But it's still a small increase over what they had before the strike, which was a little over an hour a day of planning time. The district promised to put more money into mental health support for students, invest in special education and bilingual teachers, and it promised to address problems of rodents, mold in classrooms that are too hot or too cold. The union and the district ratified this agreement this week. Many of you have asked if the teachers will be paid for the days they were on strike. That's an easy one to answer. Yes. As part of the agreement, the teachers will get back pay for the strike month of November, and their health insurance will not be affected. The days students missed have been added to the school calendar, including the controversial choice to put kids back in class the week before Christmas, which was originally part of winter break. Union President Angela Bonilla told the school board this week that the strike needed to happen because of everything the schools have dealt with since the start of the pandemic.
And so when we talked about the possibility of the strike, we really had to think about what the impacts would be on our students because the memory of COVID closures is so present. And we understood that we were taking a risk, and it was a calculated risk in order to really bring these things to light and push for better conditions for our workers and also for our student learners. We understand that we were disrupting learning, but we understood that we were disrupted learning. And the goal was to get to a point where we could ensure that students had high quality education and that our educators had the working conditions they needed to provide that quality education.
The school district says the agreement is going to cost them $175 million over the next 3 years, and they don't have that money. They say the district is going to be seeing some cuts over the next few years and that the cuts will be felt in the classroom. School board member Andrew Scott says the state needs to step in and directly blamed lawmakers for the strike.
And we cannot afford it because the governor and legislature have failed to adequately fund education in Oregon. Full stop. I want to be very clear about the following points. This strike is a result of Governor Kotek and the democratically controlled state legislature failing to do their job. Support for public schools in Oregon has been steadily declining since the passage of Measure 5, but we cannot continue to blame a poorly designed ballot measure from 30 years ago. In this last legislative session, there was never a serious conversation about funding education at the level that the state itself says is needed for our students to thrive, the quality education model. During the campaign, I asked then candidate Kotek about funding at QEM, and she said that's not going to happen.
QEM, like he said, stands for Quality Education Model, which is a report given to the governor and legislature detailing how much money is needed for schools to operate at their current service level and how much more money is needed to fully fund schools to help them reach high achievement levels. This past session, Democratic lawmakers bragged about sending a record level of funding to education, more than $10 billion. But that was the current service level funding. In order to get to that full funding number, that would have needed to be closer to $13 billion. Districts say the $10 billion just wasn't enough. Kotek said she wants to create a new office within Oregon's Department of Education to make sure budget information is more transparent and everyone knows exactly how much money they're looking at. And she wants lawmakers to consider a statewide salary schedule for teachers. She also wants them to take a close look at how much education actually costs.
So we have to, I think, take a deep dive on how we're doing our school funding formula. So we'll work with the legislature on that, and we'll be asking my chief financial officer and the Department of Education to weigh in with legislators of how to review and revise the methodology on school funding. So when we come into the 2025 session, we will have a better understanding of what the actual needs of the districts are, because we're not there. There's a big disconnect between current service level and what we're seeing at the local level.
But PPS board member Andrew Scott says the state has one massive source of money, and he wants lawmakers to start talking about sending it to schools.
We need to move the political conversation about what is possible in this state. And yeah, I'm talking about kicker reform. For 20 years, everyone has said it's impossible. We are about to spend $5 billion back to Oregon taxpayers because of the kicker law. That funding would have been transformational for every school district in Oregon. And the reason the state has that extra $5 billion is because wealthy Oregonians and businesses are doing better than they ever have, and as a result, they're paying more in taxes than expected. The boom for those people is real. But instead of capturing it and making the boom real for others, say our educators, we're giving the wealthy a tax rebate. So let's stop having people tell me it's not possible and start figuring out how we can make it possible. And if Salem doesn't want to do it, we can put together an initiative. And trust me, if we could harness just 50% of the anger that was directed towards this board over the last few weeks and redirect that anger towards the kicker, I guarantee you we'd have that thing overturned next year.
When it comes to the kicker, Kotek says she's open to the idea if lawmakers bring it up, but it's likely to be a non-starter in Salem.
There are folks who are really struggling right now financially. That kicker rebate next year is going to be important for those households. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a future conversation, but we have seen the cost of living go up. We have seen inflation level off, but food prices have not gone down. And people need help, and this is one way that they will get some tax relief next year. Longer conversation, up to the legislature.
And look, let's be honest here. A lot of people believe kicker reform would be bordering on political suicide, especially if that reform includes the state keeping that money. The Portland strike is sure to influence other school districts throughout the state. About a third of them are in contract negotiations this year, and they're also looking to the Capitol. Yesterday, the superintendent of the Salem-Keizer School District, the second largest in the state behind Portland, called out lawmakers, saying the current school funding model is the reason her district is $30 million in the hole.
Oregon's state K-12 public education funding system is archaic and inequitable. It is creating enduring damage to Salem-Keizer public school students. And as of today, there is no clear solution in sight.
So what is being done to make up $30 million? Here's a look at the proposed cuts announced so far. The district will reduce conference travel and suspend purchases of new vehicles and technology. 63 district leaders are having their base salaries frozen next year, and Castaneda will even give $30,000 of her own salary next year to help fund district programs. They will scale back on money they put towards a safety cushion for the district, including the public employee retirement system. The district had been sending extra money there for the future, but that will be trimmed down. Superintendent says it will not affect paychecks or retirement checks. A few more. The district will not be upgrading playgrounds or furniture and will not start any new career or technical programs. Finally, they will charge more for outside organizations to rent school facilities. Now, those proposed cuts equal $26 million. The final round of recommended cuts will be released next week. But the superintendent says the $30 million in reductions is not enough to solve overall budget woes, meaning there's more to come. It's a scenario that many school districts will be grappling with in the year plus to come. The next round of funding for schools will not come until the long legislative session in 2025. So what do you think about all this? Do lawmakers need to find more money for schools? Should it come from the kicker? Or do school districts need to make cuts? Do you think the PPS strike was worth it? Send us all your thoughts. We read them all. Email the story, kgw.com, or leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090.